Hi, I'd like to have a conversation about limiting beliefs. It's an area that it affects so many of us, so many people. In fact, I would hazard a guess that there might be almost 100% of the population have a limiting belief of some sort. A lot of people can move through them, can overcome them, and some people just blindly just keep pushing through as if there is nothing is going to stop me. I want to share a couple of personal stories which will give you an idea as far as we all have potential for something to slow us down, to stop us from flying. Now, speaking of flying, before I go on and tell my story, simple question. How does a butterfly know that it can fly? Well, firstly, it trusts its instincts, and no one's ever told it that it can't fly. So it just flies. And that's the thing. When we just go through life succeeding and doing so well, the chances are that at no stage in your life has anyone ever told you that you can't do it. And it's interesting as a therapist, how many times when I'm working with a client who presents with limiting beliefs, how many times it's a voice from the past. There's somebody else telling them that you can't do it. You won't achieve this, you won't achieve that. Now, on a personal level, I know that when I was 20, my family's business collapsed. Uh, we had a pub and we pretty well bankrupt, and we had to sell the pub. I can remember my auntie, her wise words. Well, she wasn't all that wise, but I can still hear her saying, Camerons will never succeed in anything. And here am I being this impressionable 20-year-old. And I think there's a part of me that believed it. There's a part of me that thought, maybe it's true. Because all I had known was, even though we did have some success, but then the whole thing went pear-shaped and we lost the lot. And then when I went into corporate, I went into the corporate world, and in Australia, I was working as a sales manager for multinational companies. And I remember working for one multinational company where I was offered a promotion to move to the state of Victoria to be the Victorian sales manager. There's a voice in the back of me that said, no, I think they've got the wrong person. I don't think I'm up to it. I didn't accept the role. I was working with an American multinational in Australia. I was offered a promotion to move to South Australia as the South Australian state manager. That little voice in the back of my head came up again and said, no, no, I don't think it's you. No. So I didn't take the role. And this continued. And I'm glad that I finally got out of corporate, and I thought I have to stand on my own 2 feet. I have to push through because I knew there was going to be success. I knew that I had everything to achieve success, but I had to overcome the limiting belief, those little voices that were stopping me. And when I'm listening to the words of clients who will tell me a story, where they'll say, there's just this little voice. And I'll ask, so whose voice is it? They might invariably say, mine. So who's listening to that voice? Well, I am. Okay. So who is observing you listening to that voice? Well, me. So it's okay. So you talk about the voice, it's mine, and I'm listening to it, and me is observing all of this. So there's all these components of that voice. And I tell them a story. It's an old comedy sketch from, I don't know where. It sounds almost like it was a Monty Python sort of sketch, but you've got two guys, they're in the desert. They've been crawling for days. They've got no food, they've got no water. And one of them turns to the other and says, I think this is it. I can't go on. And the other says, it's been nice knowing you. And they put their heads down. The screen goes black. A couple of seconds later, screen comes back on again. And one of them stands up and says, who's filming this? And you pan back and there's a film crew. And they have a bottle of water and a sandwich. And they say, we are. I ask, how long have you been here? I've been here for days, watching you guys, filming you. Have you got water? Yeah, yeah. Can I have some? And they're having a chat. And then the cameraman says, well, who's filming this? And he goes back. There's another film crew. And then another one. And then there's a helicopter. And I thought it was such a brilliant metaphor for what's happening in here when we have these thoughts, these limiting beliefs, limiting thoughts that just keep escalating. And we'll be talking about the power of the narrative in module 9. But we have to be careful of the story that we tell ourselves. And it's that story that continues those limiting beliefs. So there are exercises in this module that I encourage you to work through, try to any potential limiting belief that you might have. And I want to hear about yours. I want to hear about what you've done to overcome any limiting beliefs that you might have had. And let's share them in the forum or maybe just one-on-one. It's up to you. And look forward to hearing how you've applied that. And I'll see you on the other side.